Okay, well, yeah, welcome again. Thanks for joining this afternoon. We will Let me just run through this. So today we'll talk very briefly about the incubator itself. So we're going to run through the sessions, the components, what the kind of overall objective of the incubator is. And the main purpose of today is really just to give you a quick overview, but also open it up for any questions or thoughts you all have relating to the incubator. We'll also talk about what participants will get out of the program, the specific components of the sessions, and then the next steps, because the incubator is obviously the more kind of formal sessions component of that, but there are a couple of other pieces that we kind of layer onto this to hopefully support businesses, sites, and attractions with their activities. And I do want to emphasize that traditional incubator is often for a business, but this is really for businesses, sites, and attractions. So anyone that's kind of in the operational mode of implementing tourism activities, experiences, accommodations, etc. This is intended for them, whether you're for profit or a non-profit like a museum or something. So what is the tourism incubator? The goal, as I just mentioned, is to support businesses, sites, and attractions. It's targeted at managers or owners or those really in the nuts and bolts of kind of running a tourism operation or service or facility. The incubator is a 9-session, and I'll go through the outline of the different components of that in just a minute. But it's 9 sessions. It's a webinar-based program, so it'll pretty much all be online. There is one program right before it that's not officially part of the program that we'd ask participants to join, and that's in person in the regions. But the sessions itself are essentially all online. They'll all be about an hour and a half or 2 hours long, and there will be some kind of homework and follow-up with each of them. But each of those sessions has a different thematic topic that will cover different aspects of running a tourism operation. And the goal is, there's a lot of educational information sources out there. So our goal is really to tailor the incubator around tourism and tourism in rural regions, and then essentially point participants to specific resources that can supplement that knowledge. So there's a lot of resources, for example, on how to start a business and accounting and some of those kind of base skills that we've identified, and we can point people to where to find and learn those subjects. But we won't specifically be talking about some of those kind of core subjects in this program. We'll just help to make connections to programming that can support those pieces. So our real focus is tourism and the kind of specifics around tourism and tourism operations. And then we'll have a whole group of different expert speakers and group sessions to support participants of the program. And it's also just a great place where we all can network. So other businesses and sites and attractions can learn from each other and understand what each other are doing, as well as from experts that will pull in from other specific subjects. What we're trying to get at, what participants will hopefully get out of this is first understanding kind of organizational management and operations, again, specific to tourism, and best practices related to that. So running a tourism operation, partnership building, marketing, a number of these subjects that we'll cover in the incubator. Essentially best practices and how-tos relating to those. There'll also be a component, especially at the beginning, but also kind of throughout, on really just kind of aligning that entrepreneurial mindset and thinking and establishing habits to run an effective tourism operation. And we say that entrepreneurial mindset, not purely for businesses. So even if you're running a museum or another site or attraction that's a non-profit, the mindset and the kind of operational components are still very similar, if not the same, as a for-profit entity. But they're, obviously you're not making profit. That money goes back into the institution that you're working for, but all of the other mechanics are pretty much the same. So kind of aligning that mental space around running that organization effectively. And then the skills related to that. So specific skills within the subjects that we'll get into in just a minute. As I mentioned earlier as well, there's a strong component of networking. So that's networking within participants for the incubator, and we'll cap the incubator at about 20 people. It may end up being less, which is fine as well, a smaller group. But what our aim is kind of 10 to 20 people that will be from all of the 4 regions, or 5 actually, with the new one coming on board potentially. But all of the regions in that one space, kind of working together and learning from each other, but also networking with some of the other folks that we bring in to talk about specific subjects. And then folks will also get tangible plans out of it. So as we go through each of these specific subjects, folks will have templates, and we'll work with participants to help them to kind of flesh out these mini plans that they'll develop along the way. So some of those will include customer profiles and the customer journey, mini marketing strategies, fundraising strategies, risk management, and potentially others as well, depending on what folks identify. And in addition to the more formal component, the sessions, the webinar sessions, we do also have a kind of mentorship component. So there'll be one-on-one sessions after the incubator that can focus in on specific subjects for participants. So if one participant is really interested in drilling deeper into marketing and really focusing on that, or the more kind of operational aspects of their organization, we can work with them on those components as well, in addition to these kind of set scheduled sessions that will be part of the incubator. So the incubator itself, as I mentioned, is 9 sessions. These are the 9 components. I won't spend a lot of time or any time actually talking through each of these, because I'm going to go through that in just a minute. But I do just want to outline the schedule for the program. So the goal it will kick off at the beginning of February next year. So we've got a little bit of time. It's not happening immediately, but we want to get the word out there. A couple of you guys are TDAs, so spreading the word to some of your members and organizations would be great. But then the webinars are scheduled essentially every Tuesday evening. So we'll have, again, each one vary a little bit, but an hour and a half to 2 hours every Tuesday for 9 weeks. It'll be fairly intensive. Obviously, that's a fair chunk of time. But the goal is to have it consistent and kind of run through it in the winter months to get through it for the spring in 2024. So that's the schedule. We also will have that, or it is up online for anyone that wants to go back for that. So it's on the Uplift website, and if you click on Knowledge Center, you can find the info there. So I did mention before we get the incubator started, we do ask participants that sign up to participate in this in-person workshop that we'll be running with Smithsonian Institution in January next year. And that workshop focuses on conceptualizing and enhancing your tourism experience. And essentially it's a one-day workshop walking through the early stage of just thinking about what tourism experience you want to offer, and that can apply to new entrepreneurs or new folks creating a new tourism experience, or adding a tourism experience to something they're already doing, or also tweaking and expanding something they're already offering. So it's not just for like brand new tourism experiences, but the goal there is to think through what are the components of that tourism experience, and what are the stories and cultural significance and other components that make it unique and engaging. And we'll work through that process on that one-day workshop in January, and we'll have one workshop in each of the regions, so there'll be four total. And at the end of that workshop, folks will come out with this kind of template plan of what it is they're trying to create and what's needed to actually do that. So we ask Incubator participants to go through that, because it kind of gets the brain moving in terms of what am I trying to create and how to actually do that, and some of the nuts and bolts to get that thinking started. And then they'll flow into the incubator to then go through the more details of putting all of that together. And yeah, kind of moving from an idea to an actual plan and implementation. So that'll be in January. And then early February 6th, we'll kick off the incubator itself. As I said, these will all be online in the evening. The first session will be on introduction, essentially getting everyone that's signed up to introduce themselves, talk about what their tourism experience, service or product is that they're either looking to develop or already offering and want to tweak and improve. And doing a little bit of learning and kind of networking essentially among ourselves as a cohort. We'll also spend some time looking at some of these other resources that we've identified that we won't cover in detail in the incubator, but are good resources for that just kind of background knowledge. So, some broader marketing components, how to start a business, all of those components will kind of point people in the right direction of where to find, and that'll also be integrated into the more specific sessions we'll be running. And then we'll also, for the second half of that session, focus on business mindset and that kind of mental health as an entrepreneur. And again, entrepreneur as someone that's running an organization, not necessarily just a business owner, but someone that's running that tourism entity, whether it's a non-profit or a for-profit. So kind of getting into that mindset and what to think about and plan for as we get into this. Then session 2 is about business and organizational management. So kind of broadly, the organizational structure, strategic management, best practices and how-tos to manage your organization, and a number of kind of specific components to this. We'll have in this session and other sessions, we'll have some great speakers, some from like the entrepreneurship department at App State, and some people that are also kind of in the thick of it in terms of doing this themselves, speaking through during these programs. And then at the end of that session, we'll get into the customer profile and journey. So really drilling down into, from a tourism entity, who is your customer, what is their profile, and what is that journey from the point that they might discover you as a tourism experience to the point where they actually either turn up or purchase that experience, that activity, that tourism product, whatever that is. So we'll talk through and essentially go through working to develop those profiles and journeys. And folks will have a bit of homework also to go out and then fill those in and flesh those out for their own specific tourism entity. And then thirdly, building on that who's your profile, who's your market, who's your visitor, and how do they reach you, how do they learn about you and reach you. We'll then spend a session on marketing and sales. So Carol here will talk about marketing and advertising and what is the difference between those. We'll also have some of our marketing folks doing some sessions on marketing strategies. So building your marketing strategy, best practices, what to focus on, again, through the tourism lens. So it's not just general marketing, it'll be very specific to tourism marketing and tourism market strategy. And then also at the end of that, branding and positioning. So what is your image? What kind of image are you trying to project? And what is your brand and position to promote that to a potential visitor? The fourth session is hiring employees and staff management. So for that, maybe I might pass off to Kerry a little bit, because this is kind of her expertise, but we'll look at a number of aspects relating to employment and management. Kerry, do you want to jump in, just so that they're not listening to me all the time?
Yeah, sure. Great job so far, Simon. Yes, session 4 focuses on hiring employees and staff management through the lens of the rural communities. So looking at recruitment through the rural lens, how can you find the best people to do the work that you need, is the first element of it. And then second, there is a process. And so what are some of the best practices around onboarding and then training your staff, whether they're new employees, new volunteers, or they're existing team members that need to get either up to speed, or you're implementing a new practice. And so that's what that focuses on. And again, that part of that is looking at staff management best practices. How do you leverage the people that you have and support them so that you're getting the most out of them? And I would argue, more importantly, that they see the value. They see the value in your business, the value of the business in the community, and recognize that they are a critical part of this overall success. So that would be session 4. Thank you, Simon.
Oh, you're welcome. And feel free to jump in if I'm missing something as we go through.
Sure.
And also on the hiring, the focus here will be employees and staff management. But I know some entities, especially the nonprofit side, also engage volunteers a lot and have a lot of volunteers. So we'll cover that subject as well. Collaboration and relationship building is also a critical part for any tourism organization. So we'll talk about the broader scale, the kind of nature of partnerships, the nature of building strong collaborations and relationships. And then we'll also focus on subjects like cultural competency, effective communication, and inclusive language. So how to engage community members and groups and organizations in your community, and potentially broader communities outside of your county or region, effectively and in inclusive ways, and making sure that the language and the messaging and the kind of collaborative approach is all aligned through that.
Absolutely. Simon, I'd like to jump in here and share with you all, if you recall, one of the earlier sessions is around focuses on marketing. And so, using collaboration as well as building partnerships are important. There is a marketing element involved in that. So the sessions, you may not be able to see it here, but one of the things that we will do as each session comes, we will refer back to information as it applies. And this is a great example of where the cultural competency and effective communication and inclusive language can be used and applied also to your marketing strategy. And then, also, it also helps with your hiring practices, your recruiting practices, as well as supporting your staff. So on the onset, the topics may appear as if they are independent and siloed topics, but that's not true. A lot of thought has gone into how do they actually connect, and you will have that experience as we go on through each session.
Thank you. That's a great point. The 6th is talks about money, so financial management, both essentially costing out your tourism experience and best practices and things to think about, And again, this is not just for new tourism entities. It can be for an existing entity that wants to have a little quick look at their existing costing and pricing ultimately, and how to tweak and adjust that, and whether they're kind of aligned with best practices. So we'll look at tourism costs. We'll also look at the other side of that. So how to effectively price your tourism product. And then in addition to like just setting that price, how to put that price in front of a visitor in an effective way. So there's a number of kind of techniques and approaches to doing that, so that you essentially are most effective in them pulling that trigger and then purchasing that product. So we'll talk through a number of those aspects, and then we'll also cover some of the kind of a little bit more mundane, but bookkeeping and accounting best practices as well, related to obviously costs and expenses and the pricing and revenue. Our seventh subject will be continuing, I guess, with the dollar signs, is the funding resources. So how to effectively engage to generate funds, to generate investment. So that can be grants if you're a nonprofit, it can be loans if you're a business, but also to build on the point that Kerry made earlier, it can also be collaborative funding resources. So if there's resources out there that kind of match yours in marketing, for example, that's another way of essentially leveraging funding to support what you're trying to ultimately achieve. So that comes back to partnerships, comes back to some of those other components. So we'll look at some of the common funding options, again, for nonprofits and for-profits, creating a funding strategy for what you need and how you can go out and get it, and then pitching to funders as well. And that could be pitching to a bank, pitching to a grant organization, but as I mentioned as well, it could be pitching to a Visit NC to do a collaborative marketing program, or some other, or TDA or someone else like that for collaborative investment. The eighth component is risk management, so waivers and insurance and other components. This is pretty critical. Obviously, you can have the most fantastic tourism experience in the world, but if you're being sued every 5 minutes, it's not really going to be too successful. So understanding risk, especially related to the tourism sector and the tourism experiences and products that the participants will be offering. We'll talk through that. We'll have some experts on risk management, talk about that as well, talk about insurance coverage and essentially what are those options and what's needed from a tourism entity perspective. And then a panel discussion with a number of folks that are actually doing this and can talk about the insurance that they need and their risk management profiles related to that. And then obviously kind of in this session, but also many of the other sessions as well, there'll be, in pretty much all of the sessions, there'll be collaborative discussions with participants and with those providing the information and talking about the information. And then the last session will be essentially a close up. So we'll review the last 8 sessions. We can also kind of come back to some of the main interests and topics that folks want to talk about and brainstorm on a little bit more. We'll obviously celebrate and recognize everyone coming through the program. We'll ask folks to kind of pitch their product and see if it's refined a bit from that first session 9 weeks earlier. And then also we'll talk about next steps. And those next steps for the program will include essentially these follow-up one-on-ones. So who specifically from the team or others will bring in will be determined based on the needs of each participant. But depending on their identified needs, we'll have one-on-one sessions to help each of those individual organizations move forward specific needs they want to focus on. Again, that could be marketing, that could be their operational needs, but depending on what they identify, we'll then put a plan together for that follow-up. So that's broadly the program. It's got 9 sessions. We have that in-person one right at the beginning, and then we have some one-on-one follow-up that will be layered on after that. I'm going to quickly pass over to Lily just to talk a bit about the next steps in terms of signing up and those pieces, and then I'll open it up for questions after that.
All right. Awesome job, Simon. Who's excited? Good transition into what we're now asking from you now that we're so thrilled to be starting the incubator. Of course, we're going to sign up, and we'll talk about this on the next slide. And then before the incubator sessions, like we discussed at the beginning, we're going to want you to attend that workshop in January, just to kind of get you prepared for the first handful of sessions, get you in the mindset of what we're trying to do with our incubator. During the actual sessions, we have a few requirements. The first is that you don't have to attend all 9 sessions. We're flexible. We understand that we're all working, but at least 7 we ask that you participate in, as well as complete any of this relevant homework assigned with the sessions that you attend. So 9 might sound like a lot, 7 might sound a little more feasible. I'll be there at every 9. I'll be with you for every one. So we'll be in it together. You'll have support the entire time, so don't let it overwhelm you by any means. The next is preparing for this time commitment. It is going to be a lot, the homework, the sessions. It's going to be about 40 hours, so a good solid work week to prepare you for years ahead. So we think it's worth it. And then the last one is just lively engagement with all of the sessions, most importantly with the participants, your other participants and peers. Of course, the instructors, our speakers, we hope that you're excited to engage with us and them as well, but the participants more than anything, just making sure that you're maintaining and building that network throughout this whole process, because that's one of our biggest takeaways. Transition into that, what you're walking away from this program with, like we discussed at the beginning, that big impactful network that you're building with the peers in this program, peers outside of this program, as well as those mentorships and one-on-one sessions after the incubator. Those are all a part of this super impactful network that we'll be building. Tangible working documents that our plan is for you to be able to take out of the session and apply directly to your business. A few tweaks here and there, and of course, editing and updating during your follow-up sessions, but these are going to be real working documents and planned strategies that you'll be able to use. These new skills and of course that newly aligned mindset that we've been talking about for our industry.
And I did just want to point out that the 40 hours includes obviously all of the sessions themselves, the homework, so there'll be a bit of follow-up homework, probably an hour, depending, like maybe an hour and 2 after that. And then those one-on-one sessions as well. So that 40 hours is not spread over 2 or 3 months, and it's but it does include all of those pieces.
Absolutely. So on to how we sign up. I'll go ahead and drop a link in the chat. Okay, so this is now pasted in the chat, so you can click straight from here, but the link is just our Uplift website, and you can go into the Tourism Incubator page of our website. Read through it. Of course, it's going to kind of compile everything that we just covered here. But at the bottom of the page is where you actually can click the Apply Here button. You can see direct screenshot from the website, super easy, super clear. You're just going to click Apply Here. It's going to take you to a Google form. It'll let you submit your application straight from there. It only takes about 60 seconds, easy peasy. Of course, during or before, even after, if you have any questions during the application process, we're always here. But we're excited to see some applications start to roll in. So.
And this is so if you go to the website, it's in the Knowledge Center, and then there's an incubator link within those. But we'll be sending some more information out after this, and then I'm sure a couple more times as well. And we can share the slide deck as needed. With that, I'll just quickly shift to our emails if anyone needs to contact us. I'll ask Hesse to stop the recording, and then we can open it up for any questions.